What's up, everyone? Welcome into this edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. I'm your host, Zach Bollinger. For today, Ryan will not be joining us, but as we've talked about over the past few weeks, we're kind of getting all our ducks in a row. Still wanted to come on here and talk a little ball because we do have some things going on. It's March 4th. We are officially 1 week away from NFL free agency, and there is a lot that needs to get done over the next week. Talking Lamar Jackson, extension talk, Tyler Linderbaum, what's going to happen there, and so much more, kind of breaking down the entire offseason with an old friend. But before we go into that stream or continue this stream, let's head over to our auto stream, where if you go there, get your car dealt with, get anything fixed that you need to. And if you mention Ryan Ripken, say the Ryan Ripken Show sent you $50 off any service. Just mention the name Ryan Ripken. Cannot be combined with other offers. And from that stream back to this stream, it's going to be a short episode. It'll probably be closer 25, 30 minutes, but we wanted to get some content out to you guys. And joining me to talk a little Ravens football, we have the one, the only, Kevin Ostreicher. Kevin, how we doing?
Man, I'm just the old friend now. I'm still here. I'm still a part of the team.
I know, but I feel like you haven't come on in like.
I know it's been a long time.
Yeah, so I had to toss in the old friend.
Working behind the scenes a little bit more, but it's been good. I'm glad to be back, and yeah, it's fun. Spring training is in the air. Keegan Aiken giving up homers. Just everything feels right in the world.
It does. Pete Alonso stealing bases. We have injury concern in the Orioles bullpen. Everything's back to normal. Kevin, we got Lamar Jackson contract drama. Yeah. Like, it's another damn paradise in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's great. But I'm glad at least the baseball is back at the very least. And we've seen a lot of positive signs from the Orioles and guys that hopefully will carve out. Heston is a guy that I'm just like, okay, can he finally figure it out? And he's obviously had a lot of moments. So I'm happy for that. And then free agency is always one of my favorite times of the year for football. So it's a fun time right now.
Yeah, I mean, in football, you got obviously free agency kicking off in a week, but then we just had the NFL Combine, take place. We'll have a lot of pro days happening between now and April, but this is a very, very fun time of year, especially for people like us who enjoy also the team building aspect of it, all the different ways that you can construct your roster, make moves to improve now while also helping yourself out later. So let's just jump right in. Kevin, the Ravens have a week before free agency, and we're going to start with the quarterback position because I even see Keith asking here, do you think the Ravens will get a deal done with Lamar Jackson before next week? As we all know, yes, Lamar Jackson is under contract. He's not going anywhere. But at $76 million cap hit, that's also not going to happen as well. So it's either going to be, do we restructure to void years? Are we going to get a full extension, which would be best case scenario? Kevin, talk us through kind of how you're seeing things right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because I think either way, the money is going to be moved, whether that is he signs the extension or he ends up having some restructure happen. That's the most important part. But obviously it would be better for, I believe, everybody involved, but more so the organization if Lamar were signed to an extension before free agency started. Now, the reason I say that, not for Lamar, is I personally believe Lamar can get more money next offseason because if we can be honest about the situation, Lamar had a down year last year because of the injury situation and just how the team was. There were a lot of factors that went into that. I think for me, I mean, this is kind of Lamar, if he does sign an extension, signing at a lower point than he could be next offseason. And so when trying to contextualize why hasn't it gotten done yet? Why hasn't Lamar just signed for a little more than Josh Allen or Dak Prescott or whatever, those top quarterback monies and guarantees are? Part of it might be the fact that possibly Lamar looks at his year and sees the new system with Declan Doyle, sees the new head coach with Jesse Minter, understands that there will hopefully and likely be some revamping of that offensive line to help him out. and he says, well, hey, I could sign now and get a lot of money, or it could be a risk situation where, he risks not signing the extension now, but then maybe he has another MVP caliber season, or he wins the MVP, or maybe he goes to the Super Bowl, or the Ravens win the Super Bowl. Yeah. And then he's really cooking and you got a lot more money on the table. Plus, the cap's going up. I think that either way it works for the Ravens and Lamar, but ideally you don't want to kick the can down the road because it complicates things and you just want to have it all settled up. But at the end of the day, the money is going to be moved either way. So it's kind of a non-issue because this is not like 2023 where we were all like, oh, is he going to sign? Where is he going to play? What's he going to do? Like, we know he's going to be in Baltimore next season. It's just about the money and what Baltimore can do with it.
Yeah, and I like how you said that. I think it is, it does benefit the organization much more if they sign Lamar this offseason. Why? Because, okay, let's say they push it all off with void years and kind of just restructure. And in a restructure, you don't really need Lamar to sign off on. You just kind of are, hey, you're getting the same amount of money. We're just moving the cap hit around. And actually, I believe it makes, Joel Berry told us, somewhere around $86 million would be the cap hit next year. So, yes, you're pushing it all off on the next year. But if you're Lamar, like you said, Kevin, yeah, I think he's still the highest paid quarterback in the league. If he signs an extension this year, I think you get that bump. But highest paid quarterback in the league can be $5 million more next year when not only cap goes up, but more players sign. We get more contract extensions, more quarterbacks add to that list. And I do think it is going to be one of those situations where if you're Lamar, you might be looking at this and saying, hey, kind of like you said, Kevin, if I go out there and I win my third MVP, if I go out there and I lead this team to the Super Bowl, to the AFC Championship, that the price of a brick continues to go up, even though you're already sitting there going, hey, he can be the highest paid quarterback in the league right now. Yeah, but the highest paid quarterback in the league, he's going to, whenever he signs it, he's going to become that. I don't think there's really a route when he signs an extension that he doesn't become the highest paid quarterback in football. So is it okay? I'm getting the same money this year, but if I bet on myself, like you're saying, Kevin, and I do, it does pay off. I go on, finish top 3 for MVP. I look like a healthy Lamar Jackson. Well, then next year, suddenly it goes from, we're getting $61 million a year to is it $65, $66 million a year. And it kind of, you go from there. So I do think it is a majority on, or the ball is in Lamar's court. If he signs, awesome. But like you said, Kevin, I don't think there's not much drama in, is he going to play this year? It's just more, are we doing this year, or are we going to have to wait for next year to get something done?
Yeah. And another thing is, when Lamar signed that deal, and I've talked about this on Locked On Ravens a ton. I feel like I talk about it every day because that's one of the biggest storylines. It reminds me of 2023. There were like 4 months straight of just Locked On Ravens episodes that were Lamar Jackson contract. But when he signed that deal, everyone's like, oh, that's so much money. That's the highest contract ever. Like, look, that's a ton of money. And then here we are today. And what is it, like the 8th highest, 10th highest quarterback contract in the league? I mean, the salary cap's going to continue to go up, and a deal that everyone was saying, yeah, Lamar deserved and earned that. Man, that's a lot of money. That's almost a steal of a deal considering what some of these other quarterbacks are being paid yearly. So this is just what it's going to be. I think the Bills got ahead of the game by paying Josh Allen what they did. And by the way, the Chiefs did that with Mahomes years earlier, and they obviously restructured that deal. But when Mahomes, what was it, 10 years, 500 or whatever the contract was, like everyone's like, what in the world? But now you're looking at it and you're like, well, that makes a lot of sense now why they did that. But with everything, all these contracts are going to have big cap numbers, big cap hits. They're always meant to come back to the table for the most part in some way, shape, or form. And you're going to have to do it with Lamar, whether it be this year or next year. You don't want to keep continuing to kick the can down the road. But, we'll look back if he signs an extension today or tomorrow or whenever. We'll look back on it in 2 years, much like we're doing this year with the Lamar deal from a couple of years ago, and say, man, remember when we all thought that was like this crazy amount of money? And it's not crazy for Lamar, but like this crazy amount of money in terms of how big that contract is. Now look at what, I don't know, Daniel Jones got, or Trevor Lawrence, or whoever, those quarterbacks that are in that mid tier getting $160, $200 million contracts. will be like, man, all right, it's almost like Kyle Hamilton, where I still don't know how they got him on that deal. But, him getting paid 25 a year, 25.1 a year at safety, and he's the best safety in the league, in my opinion, and you're starting to see safeties get in and around that money in a couple of years. We're going to be like, man, look at what the Ravens got Kyle Hamilton for. It's the same conversation with Lamar, in my opinion.
Yeah, and before we continue this conversation, I do just have to say I got the notification. Oh, well, you said, we'll get a notification soon, and my phone buzzed, and I was like, what if this is the Lamar? But it wasn't. It was just Vance Honeycutt is officially 4 for 4 with 4 home runs in his spring training. Just did another.
Let's go.
It just,
man, he needed this spring too. This has been
he did. But back to the little, the Lamar discussion. And I think the only thing that if you're Lamar that you might look at right now and go, the benefit of signing now, it would have to be a selfless reason of not, hey, I can get the most money down the line. It would be, okay, how does this set up the organization to add more talent in years down the line? Okay, they can take on a contract this year that maybe gets not as great down the line because you have more flexibility. And obviously you can worry about that later on. But I think it's more, if you're the Ravens, like you said, Kevin, you just don't want to keep kicking the can down the road because, like, contrary to popular belief, like the salary cap does exist, and it definitely exists the more and more you push things off because those dead cap, those void years, yeah, right now they don't add up, but it's like we all joke about. I don't know if the I almost said Phillies, Eagles are going to be able to field a roster in like 2031 with all the dead cap and void years. It's like their whole salary cap might be that. It catches up to you eventually. So having restructures or signing extensions, adding on a few more years just to even out all the money, I think that's best for the Ravens. And I also think it's just good for Lamar to probably go into this year also with the safety of, hey, let's say another injury-riddled season, God forbid, but another, like, you have those 5 years of cushion knowing, hey, I'm getting paid for this. I have that security. That's where I saw someone asking about what's in it for Lamar to sign right now. It would be not job security, but just security of if an injury happens, if, something were to go wrong, you have those 5 years. Yeah, it might not be hey, you get $70 million next year, but it's something to work with and kind of have some security. So let's move on to the guy snapping him the football because, Kevin, for a long time, I didn't picture anyone besides Tyler Linderbaum having that position at center. And for the longest time, it was, there would always be those, you would see on the internet of like, from the Chargers fans, like Tyler Linderbaum's a free agent this season. And it's like, in your wildest dreams. Well, it's no longer in their wildest dreams, Kevin. It's very real now that Tyler Linderbaum is not a Raven when training camp breaks, when teams start to sign in a few weeks. We've heard all these things about potentially record-breaking deals being offered. Don't know how much is valid about, and true with his agent isn't responding to texts or calls. It just feels like this is a weird situation. What are your thoughts on the Tyler Linderbaum? Just everything going on with that.
Yeah, it honestly feels like the longer this goes on and every day that this goes on, I feel less and less optimistic. And I've said that a ton over on Locked On Ravens, but it's like all these, you're right, like all the stuff that has come out just does not make it look great for the Ravens in terms of can they bring him back? And it's very rare that an offensive lineman like Tyler Linderbaum hits the open market. And a lot has to kind of go sideways, and that is, declining the 5th-year option when it would have reset the market by $5 million. The franchise tag number would have reset it by $7 to $8 million. And all of a sudden, you have to look at a lot of different things. And, I'm not saying Linderbaum's a perfect player, but we also remember that they were looking for a while for that center position to be secure, really since Matt Burke retired, going through Jeremy Zutal, Ryan Jensen, Matt Skura, Patrick McCary, like they finally got it. And you're right. Like once they drafted Linderbaum, I'm like, all right, this is a 10-year, 15-year Raven, like a lifetime guy. And now it just feels like the entire league is positioning themselves. And if he hits free agency, much like Ronnie Stanley, I said this last year, if Ronnie Stanley at free agency, he was as good as gone because we were getting those rumors and reports. All right, are the Chiefs interested? Are the Patriots interested? And now it's for Linderbaum. It was like, all right, the Raiders. And now, teams like the Commanders and the Titans are cutting their centers. The Bears center retired. So now they're probably a player. You have to factor in the coaches from Baltimore, like Harbaugh in New York and Monken in Cleveland. A team like the Chargers, who always seems to love those former Ravens because of the Harbaugh connection. So it's difficult because there's a cap that you can pay any player, right? Quarterbacks are probably the one exception to that because, if you have a star like Lamar or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or whoever, you're not going to let them walk out the building. Like you're going to just give them the money at some point, right? But for centers, this is super unprecedented because, usually when a market resets, it's like, oh, that guy beat that guy by like $500,000 or $1 million or a couple. This is like closer to 10 million than it is the 1 million with some of these offers here. And you have to wonder because if you're Baltimore, resetting the entire interior of your offensive line in year one of a head coach is, not ideal. And you have to reset two positions. But I think Linderbaum, struggled in pass protection last season. We know that, second to last in metrics there. And I think part of that did have to do with the fact that, he was playing next to two really poor guards. And, that's difficult. So he's someone that I would be pretty devastated if the Ravens did let leave. I mean, there's probably hindsight involved for me, at least, if he signs for over what the fifth-year option would have been. But the problem for that was that if you sign him to that fifth-year option number, then he comes back to the table next year and says, well, you're already paying me $23 million, so that's my starting point. And so you're already in that. And so when Eric DeCosta said that, all right, hey, we offered him a market-setting deal, is that like, hey, we're going to pay you $100,000 more than Creed Humphrey? Is it we're going to pay $1 million more than Creed Humphrey? Or is it we're going to pay you 2 or 3 or 4? I don't think it's that last one. I think it probably was, we'll give you $1 million and a half more. But Linderbaum and his agent probably know that if he hits the open market, he is going to get paid because this just doesn't happen. And tackles are more valuable in terms of like position value and how that's all ranked and rated up. Yeah. But having a good center, I mean, I talked with Q for Locked On Ravens this morning. He brought up the Buffalo game when, McCary snapped the ball over Lamar's head. And like, it's important. I mean, remember the snapping issues they had for years at the center position? I mean, they had Lamar looking like Odell Beckham out there with the one-handed, he's bringing him back into his body and everything. Like and not that Linderbaum never had snapping issues, but like, I think he's such a high floor player for them. And yes, he's not perfect, but no player is. If you do let him leave though, and he does get a deal that you're not comfortable paying him, I just don't want to see that money be held on to, right? Yeah. You have to reinvest it. If it's a McGovern and you go to the like 80% of production for 20% of the price rule, if you reinvest it into the guard spots, the edge rushers, you just can't hold on to that money until May or June and be like, oh, who's available after the comp pick deadline ends? You have to be aggressive with that money. If it's not going to Linderbaum, it has to go back into your team on the first couple of days of free agency. Yeah. That to me, because look, they proved to me they were serious when they fired John Harbaugh, right? That was to me where if they didn't fire John Harbaugh, I would have been like, all right, what's your plan here? Now, the next step of that plan is not to go on a $200 million shopping spree or anything like that. But if you let Linderbaum out of the door, you have to be sure you have a good backup plan because I don't want them to trot out like a 7th round rookie and an Emory Jones and a 35-year-old vet. Like you need to get on top of your game plan there because losing Linderbaum is a big deal.
Very big deal. I mean, Kevin, you talked about it. One, the interior offensive line for the Baltimore Ravens, everyone agreed needed overhauled. I don't think part of the overhaul was losing your best offensive lineman. Like when you go and look at it, it's like that, that meme where it's like, we overhaul the offensive line. It's like we bring in 2 young guards or whatever. And it's like, we let our best offensive lineman walk. It's like, what? It's like, what was that? Wait, what was that last part? It's not, I don't think it's smart, but as you point out, let's say a team just goes and good for Tyler, gives him 25, 26 million a year, just blows him out of the water. Let's say it's a Vegas, a team like that. Not only that, Kevin, but there have been guards/centers over the past week that, like you said, have been released that don't work against the comp formula anymore. So if you are still hesitant on, oh, do we want to go after a McGovern because he's going to cost a comp pick? He's going to go into the formula next year. you better not miss out on the Tyler Biadasz and guys like that. Like those better be the guys that you bring in. Guys, like you said, you can't just be trotting out 3 rookies next year. This has got to be, as much as we look at this year, and yes, it is a new regime. It is a new head coach, new OC, new DC, new special teams coordinator. The bar is still where the Baltimore Ravens had it last year. The standard is still the same. This isn't a rebuild year. This is still, you have Lamar Jackson under contract. You have Zay Flowers, and decisions have to be made with him. You do have, whether people want to talk about it or not, like an aging defense at places. You talk about the secondary with Marlon Humphrey, what are you going to do with him? Okay, now all of a sudden Awuzie's leaving. Okay, now Roquan Smith obviously getting up there even more, as he's not played up to maybe the level people have already thought about. You have the Nnamdi Madubuike situation that you're still trying to see how that unfolds. There's so many question marks that you can't just be like, oh, well, we'll figure this out next year. We just want to see what happens. We're going to develop a few people. Derrick Henry, as much as I think Derrick Henry is a freak, is a just against the norm in all possibilities for his physical attributes, like father time catches up eventually. And yes, he might not be, a bad running back, but you can't bank on, oh, well, this year rebuild, and then the year after Derrick Henry's still going to be a top 5 back in all of the league. So there needs to be urgency. And like you said, it can't be urgency of let's wait until June after the draft to see what the comp picks are looking like and see, okay, now all that stuff is done with, now we'll strike. You need to, one, if you're not getting Linderbaum back, I would almost say what you were going to pay Linderbaum, you need to split that into 2 and go get 2 really solid, either center and guard or 2 guards, and then draft a center, bring in a veteran center on a cheap deal. Like I am all in on, if you do not get Linderbaum, I know people will say like, oh, like you brought up, do you reinvest that into the defense, something like that? Jesse Minter's even talked about it in interviews. The common denominator over the past 2 years for the Super Bowl champion has been winning in the trenches. It's what you have to do. Invest it in the trenches. Go build a fortress for Lamar. Go get a defense, whether it's through the draft, through free agency, a defensive line that if you're rushing 4 guys can get home. You don't have to rush 6 to get a sack. You don't have to get pressure with 7 guys. Get 4 guys that you can put out there. Now, if Nnamdi's back, changes a lot. That changes a lot of what you can do. But at the moment, you can't guarantee anything. I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you're not going to be able to re-sign Linderbaum, that left cap space better be put to use and fast.
Yeah. And I see in the comments, Justin is asking, will the Ravens pick up Zay Flowers' 5th-year option? And the answer apparently is yes. That's what some reports have indicated early on.
Stephon Diggs just got released.
Yeah, I was about to relate it. Yeah, Stephon Diggs. I mean, I think, hey, maybe you could do something there, bring the Maryland kid home, I guess. But that'd be interesting. And I see Brandon saying, do we get a 1st-round pick for him for Tyler Linderbaum? If it's in terms of comp pick, no, that's a 3rd-rounder. But in terms of 1st-round offensive linemen, that would probably be in the conversation a lot more if Linderbaum did leave. And, could you do something along those lines? Potentially. I mean, I see Keith asking, do I see Max Crosby, or do we see Max Crosby coming here? It'd be cool, but there are also a lot of other factors in that, like the draft capital and the contract. So look, if he comes to Baltimore, you're not going to catch me complaining.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome. But, there are other situations in that. But Stephon Diggs is interesting. That's an interesting name. I feel like AJ Brown's going to the Patriots.
It has to be.
I feel
Vrabel back,
like pretty locked in. Yeah.
Reunite with Vrabel. Yeah. The Eagles are trying this whole we're not going to trade him unless if it's a top. Yeah. AJ don't want to be there. AJ doesn't want to be there, and if you keep him, he will make it known in that locker room that he does not want to be there. He's one of those guys where if he gives you the hint of, hey, I'm gone, it's not you who decides if he's gone or not. I think that's another big thing. So it's going to be really, really interesting to kind of see how it all stacks up. And it really, for the Ravens, it starts with Linderbaum. I would love to sit here and say, okay, they're going to get it done in the next 2 days. They're going to get a Lamar extension done in the next 2 days. And then you could really start cooking in free agency and figuring out what you need to add. But unfortunately, it feels like the leading up part is going to be with Linderbaum figuring out if they can get him, because I agree with you. If he hits the open market, I don't think he's coming back. I find it very hard because money talks. And there are teams who can give a lot more money to guys like that than the Ravens are going to feel comfortable with. Because I also think, Kevin, we talk about this all the time, the way the Ravens value certain positions. I don't think the Ravens value center. Like, how many times do the Ravens walk into a season and we're like, everywhere is stacked except for the guards and center, or except for this place. And like, the Ravens are okay with leaving one or two places that they feel like maybe aren't the highest value kind of as a weak point. Last year, unfortunately, it really kicked them in the ass when both guard positions, like, you were hoping they would be serviceable, and it was just so much worse than you ever could have imagined, to the point it started impacting Tyler Linderbaum. It was impacting Rosengarten. It was impacting Ronnie Stanley, because they were on islands. Even on double teams, they were on islands. So we'll see what happens there. Before we head out of here, though, hit that like and subscribe button, all that fun stuff. But, Kevin, we got Combine just kind of wrapped up. What are we feeling about at pick 14? If it was right now, Kevin Ostreicher, you're picking for the Ravens. Board falls however you want. Who's coming here?
Man, however I want, bring me Ruben Bain. I mean, man, if you're saying however I want, I mean,
that's a guy. Would you? We'll have this question, because I'm with you on Ruben Bain. Is there a point where if he falls to a certain spot, let's say 9 or 10? I mean, I doubt the Bengals or really Chiefs at 9 and 10 trade back with you unless you give them something really good. But is there a spot right now where if he falls, you're like, hey, go get him?
Probably 8.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 8. And I was saying that for Hamilton, and they got lucky and he fell to them. But like, can you think? Do you think that happens twice? I guess is the big question. But yeah, Bain would be a guy. Again, you have 11 picks. You don't need all 11 picks this year. You know, you can give up a couple of those picks to move up, even maybe a second next year or whatever it may be. It's just so against the Ravens' philosophy, though. I mean, I don't see them actually trading up, but I think that they should if Ruben Bain does fall. You know, he's a game changer. I don't care about the arm length stuff. I mean, if a guy that's why Hamilton fell, right? Not because arm length, just because the testing and all that stuff. And, you know, Hamilton's one of the best players in the league, one of the best defensive players in the league. Yeah. These guys who don't do well at the combine, like, I'm not going to just take him out of my board.
I'll say, Kevin, since you won't. Ruben Bain, short arms, undraftable top 13.
Yeah.
Undraftable top 13.
True.
With those arms length, undraftable in the top 13.
Yeah. His floor is definitely, his ceiling, I guess, is definitely pick 14. That's probably where I go with that. If it is at pick 14, though, and we're being, I guess, more realistic about it, I think Benga Ioane is someone that a lot of people are talking about, and I'd be totally on board with that. You know, he's a physical player, someone that I think fits a lot of the traits that the Ravens are looking for on their offensive line now, and I think he can be. I guess I said this about Linderbaum, so I guess I shouldn't speak too fast, but he's a guy that can be a 10-year, 15-year starter for you on that line, and that's what the Ravens need. It's going to be dictated a lot, though, by free agency, where if they add a couple of offensive linemen in free agency that they feel good starting, if they add edge rushers they feel good starting, that opens up your board. So, like, if a Carnell Tate falls to you at 14, you can run that card up because you've already addressed your other needs. I'm more open to them taking a receiver at 14 than other people might be, but that's only if they're able to address their needs in free agency. You know, if they do the thing where it's like, oh, we're gonna wait, and then they still have all these needs under the draft, you can't take a wide receiver when they're offensive lineman on the board. Like, you just can't. So
no, and you know, with the Benga Ioane pick, he's the guy right now. For a few weeks, I've kind of been on him. If Malinoa somehow falls, Francis Malinoa, I mean, that would be incredible. But Kevin, like, no one gets excited about, like, here's the thing. No one gets hyped. No one gets ecstatic about drafting an offensive lineman in the first round, because it's not the sexy pick. It's not, oh, we're going to go win the Super, you know, it's not that playmaker. It's not that game changer. And then you get to the season And you realize how important it is to have guys like that. Like Tyler Linderbaum, perfect example. He falls, Ravens get him at 22, and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, everyone was a little bit more hyped because obviously you got Kyle Hamilton just at 14, but you sit there and you're like, okay, are the arms short? Because that's always a fun thing each offseason is whose arms are just too short to physically play the game of football, despite the fact they've done it for years. And you're like, okay. And then you get into the season, you're like, oh, this was a game-changing pick. This was something where we don't have to worry about that. You pick Ione, you plug him in at right, left guard, and like you said, knock on wood, that's your starter for the next 10. Yeah, you just there's your guy. And I think doing that also helps a guy like Roger Rosengarten or Ronnie Stanley, whichever you want to put him left or right. I think he's got the, I see so many people saying this, there's no floor, but he's got the quote unquote highest floor of any prospect, meaning you plug him in, he might not be a superstar, but you're going to get a starter. You're going to get a guy that you can rely on to be a protector, especially in the pass game for Ione. So yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. I think we're definitely both on the same page of Kevin. I'm not going to lie. I do some mock drafts, and every once in a while I'm sitting there and I stare at those wide receivers. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm on the Mekhi Lemon train anymore just because simply like, is he too similar to Zay? Like, I don't know. Part of me goes back and forth on that, but then I'm also like, can you really does it matter if they're both making plays? The guy would be the dream would be if Carnell Tate somehow fell. Like if if he could run like a really slow 40 again in the pro day, like run like a 4.6, dude. Like just fall. Just run a 4.6 in short.
It is incredible how many top talents like that fall. But again, like I'd rather have a guy personally, and again, I think you have to balance it out. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather have a guy that like has shown up on tape, has the production, and like is a proven guy. And again, I guess it's different for where you are. So I'm talking about a Ravens team that's trying to compete for a Super Bowl. I would rather have a guy that has shown it on tape and done it, maybe have a couple of athletic weaknesses, if you want to call it that, as opposed to a super toolsy guy that just has a ton of potential, but you don't know. And I feel like a lot of teams just want to take that swing on like, all right, we know this guy, like couple years, man, this guy's going to be great. But it takes being in the right situation, the coaching, the support, the talent around that guy. There's a lot that has to go right with that. And I'm not saying it doesn't. It goes right all the time. Yeah. But, for where the Ravens are at 14, I'm not picking a toolsy player. I'm picking someone that can start for you day one, can have an impact for you day one. And I'm not looking back on that.
Yeah. If guys fall to the second round, like that's the fun part. Like people, obviously they're so focused on 14. You're also picking in the top half of the second round.
That's like, a fun pick. You know what I want? Do you know what the most valuable pick in the draft is to me?
Second?
33.
Yeah.
That 33rd pick where there are those guys that fall out of the draft. It's technically 32 because of the 50-year option, but I'm going to say 33 because that pick is more fun. And if there's a guy that falls, because that team gets so many trade offers for 33. And so if there's a really solid edge rusher that falls out of the first round or a really solid offensive lineman that falls out of the first round, and you want to be aggressive, move up from 45 to 33 and jump the line and take that guy, and you can technically get two huge first round talents at 14 and at 33, I would 1,000% do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what people kind of sleep on when you get a low end first round, or I guess a high first round pick. You also, that second round comes around, and picking at 45. I mean, let's talk about recently. You look at it like, okay, when the Ravens are usually picking 27 and stuff, and people look at trade backs and like trade back to 40. Well, okay, you were going to pick there anyway. Now this is the second time you're picking there. So, a lot to is going to happen between now and the draft, but I think it's going to be a very big opportunity for them to influx just a ton of talent, because that's what your hope is right now. So we'll see who falls to 14, because if you've listened to anyone, they always complain. They're like, don't worry, someone will fall to the Ravens. It happens all the time. So let's hope that's the case this time. But before we head out of here, just because we'll give it a little bit more. Vance Honeycutt, I just tweeted out, I dare Vance Honeycutt to cut down on strikeouts and become a stud. I dare him to.
Man, this is awesome. I love this. And this is what spring is about, right? Guys finding their groove, getting some confidence. And for a guy that really needed it, like this it's great. And there again, like Heston has needed it and Vance has needed it. There are a lot of guys. And I also find it curious with Boz in the pitching and, him bringing back some stuff, which I think is really fun. I think that's fun. So this has been, I mean, again, I know the injury stuff has kind of put a damper on certain things. And, can there be one season where, we just don't have to deal with that in the first week of the year? Like,
never.
I know that like every MLB front office, because, you don't have to technically report on stuff until, everything starts. First day, so every team is like, oh.
Every time you see that your GM is scheduled to talk at a press conference on the first day, you're like, I just hope it's not bad. Yeah. Like, I hope it's everyone will be back by opening day. Like you're just thinking that. You're like, I just hope everyone's going to be back soon.
Although because that was what people with the Blaze trade, everyone was like, what does this mean?
Like, like what everyone thought like, oh, is Jackson getting traded? Like, no, everyone's hurt. Everyone's hurt.
Is that the new Lamar Jackson trade rumors? Is Jackson Holiday trade rumors every year?
Yeah, every year. Jackson Holiday's going to get traded 1,000,000 times before his time in Baltimore again.
He's been traded 10 times to Detroit for Scooble already. I mean,
Oh my God. At this point, I'm like, I wouldn't. Kevin, hot take. I wouldn't give up Holiday straight up for Scooble just because one, I don't trust the Orioles to win it all this year. Like, because if you do that, like he's not re-signing in Baltimore. No. So like you are like, that's the thing. If this was last offseason, you got 2 years of Scooble, now we're talking. But I don't like putting literally all the eggs in a singular basket because you'd probably have to give up Jackson plus. That's a lot for 1 year to then trust the Orioles to win the World Series because that would be the payoff. 471-foot homer for Vance Honeycutt today. Unreal.
Boom. And what am I? Cage Stroud as a 10 ERA. Am I reading this right?
Hell yeah. Are we gonna have to start? I don't want to hate watch Cage Stroud.
I'm not hate watching. I was just checking in.
It's good he's in Arizona because if he would have gone somewhere in the American League, might have had to threaten a hate watch against Cade. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that here, okay, Cade?
Yeah.
We support you. Thankfully,
the Orioles still have one Cade, so it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And before we wrap up on this stream, let's go to our other stream, Auto Stream. $50 off when you mention Ryan Ripken. Cannot be combined with any offers. Go there to Auto Stream Car Care Center for all your automobile needs. Kevin, that's going to do it for this episode of the Ryan Ripken Show. Kevin and Zach React, though, coming back soon. So be on the lookout for that. It is come. We are less than 22 days away.
Crazy.
We're 3 weeks away, Kevin.
Man, I'm
from
pumped.
the 162 game marathon. God, how can you not be romantic about baseball? But hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. That's going to do it for this edition of the Ryan Ripken Show, and we will see you all again tomorrow.